We'll
Yeah,
hit
give me a.
record.
I'll be right back.
Right. Get everybody to hop on.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Welcome, welcome.
How's everybody today? Good. Well, let's get started with some questions as we probably should wait till the rest of our group logs on, but don't forget, reminder October. We're excited about having you guys there in Colorado and expanding your business and growing. So let's start with some questions. What do you guys have?
Yeah, I got one for you, Master
Okay.
Moody. I think that you'd probably be one of the best people to ask about this, given your background in psychology. One of the things that I've found is we just did a festival this past weekend. We had a booth running at the festival, and considering the amount of traffic that was there, we did well. I ended up booking just a little over 40 appointments, which was nice for us. I found, however, that in some of my interactions with people, I immediately kind of came off or what seems to be too salesy. And, I don't know if that maybe it's just my approach or what can I do to kind of make it seem a little more lax or maybe have
Well,
it.
What are you
yeah.
implying? Why would you think that you're coming across as too salesy?
I think just people seemed really cautious about wanting to talk to us because, I noticed that there were other booths and people would walk up to them freely. And I really just had to like actually walk out and talk to people, which I don't have a problem doing. But, I just feel it doesn't seem as approachable. And I want to know maybe what I'm doing wrong.
I don't know that you're doing anything wrong. I mean, you don't have any particular, if you feel like you're more assertive than everybody else, you're probably doing it on a scale of 1 to 10, you're probably a seven.
Right.
You
A
know,
five.
yeah, exactly. And that's if you're more assertive than everybody else. If you're like, if you have people, I don't know, screaming at you or something, that I mean, I might be
No.
thinking too assertive, but I don't think you're, but if anything, my guess would be you could still go up a little bit in assertiveness. I mean, when you're running a booth, you got to be, come on over, spin the wheel, win a prize, come on over. And
Yeah.
you can be the most exciting person in the whole place. And if the other people are sitting behind their tables and people walk up to them, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. If you did the math on it, probably less people walked up to their tables if they weren't being assertive.
Right.
I mean, I guess I'd have
Yeah.
a little question if there was a table for, I don't know, fruits and vegetables or something across the way, and they had a line out the door and all the way around. I'd wonder what magic drugs did they put in the fruits and vegetables, maybe. But I don't think that necessarily means anything unless you had some indication that you were being. In fact, I would say that the indication that you're probably doing it about right is that you have this reaction
Yeah.
that you're noticing that everybody else is lame and you're not. That doesn't mean you're salesy. That means you're being assertive and confident about getting
Yeah.
people
I,
over.
I would love to delve into that a little bit more deeply, though. Riley, why did you feel that way? What what specifically gave you that sense?
I don't know if it was like the interactions that with people that I were having that were booking appointments, they were good. It was when we would approach other people and they would, you know, they kind of give you that, right? Because, why are you trying to sell me something? Why won't you just let me come up to you instead of you coming up to us? And, I have no problem and no problem with walking up to people and saying, hey, you ever thought about trying martial arts or come and spin our prize wheel, come and check things out? But it just seems that maybe just people weren't interested. But, I want to know if there's things I can do to improve that, that approach.
Well,
If
but why are you comparing yourself with other booths? What were you seeing about other booths that you felt was more comfortable?
I think just the overall traffic, I saw that we had significantly less traffic than some of them. We still did well. I mean, 40 appointments for me was good. So, just want to know how we can improve that. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what were the other booths?
Products, beauty, jewelry. I mean, we were kind of in a kind of terrible spot in my opinion, but we tried our best with what we had.
Okay, well, here would have been the sequence, of how it would have worked. and again, you're selling karate lessons, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know who the audience is. The other booths that you described are nowhere in the range of comparables,
It was
right?
less family. It was less family oriented, I found.
Okay. Okay. Well, but if you had gone to that event and you put the most beautiful graphics in the world and you spent, of course, it's all pretty cheap now. You had spent the most money you could do on the most beautiful booth graphics and all this stuff. And you had the biggest smile on your face and the most infectious charisma, and you were sitting your ass in a chair behind the table.
Which we didn't do.
Well, I'm just giving you the sequence, right? Is everyone who would have approached the booth would have been very interested in martial arts lessons.
Hmm.
And very few people who approached the booth, well, very few people would have approached the booth, right? Now, if you had the booth and it's beautiful and one thing or another, and let's say there's a TV going on it, and you're standing out in front of the booth facing the crowd, waiting to talk to whoever's interested, you might get a few more people, but mostly you're not going to. Now, if you had the TV and you step out a little bit and you're watching the TV and people kind of walk up to the booth and then you talk to them, you're better, right? Because they're not walking up to a salesperson. I'm just going to give you the sequence of the sales setting, right? Or then you add price wheel and comparables, right? And we've certainly seen somebody out there in a costume that the kids want to get a picture with, somebody doing face painting or balloon animals or something, that's useful for the kids audience. But when you add it's the price wheel or it's some other draw to the booth that's not directly you're interested in taking martial arts lessons, you dramatically broaden the audience,
Right.
right? Because think about it, how many people go to a live event thinking, let's see if there's a martial arts school there and let's talk to them about taking lessons? Because statistically zero, right?
Right.
Maybe there's one, right? Um, or they walk through and they say, hey, there's a booth for karate over there. We talked about it, last spring. Let's go talk to them. Yeah, maybe, but not much, right?
Mhm.
So, now how many people are walking through and they see somebody selling candles and they see somebody selling beef jerky and they see somebody that's a completely different deal,
Right.
right? Um, the best that I have seen at these things, and it's a national group, is Anderson Windows. And they're really, really, really good at they're having the giveaway and they're getting you fill out the slip and then they're making an appointment at the booth and one thing or another, right? Um, but what they know is if they just had a big folding window and they had the most beautiful display in the world and they had somebody sitting behind a desk, nobody's going to talk to them,
Mhm.
right? So so I guess the first thing, and I'm just expanding upon what Master Moody said, but the first thing is if you got 40 appointments and if it feels like 40 was good relative to the traffic, which nobody can make a judgment on but you, if it feels like that is good relative to the traffic, then all of this other self evaluation is counterproductive,
Understood.
right? And if I walk up cold to people and I say, would you like to spin the wheel and win a prize? That's different from, hey, have you ever thought about taking karate lessons? Right. Um, the would you like to spin the wheel and win a prize has the downside of you get more people who have no interest whatsoever, has the upside of you get an awful lot more people because I'm not trying to pitch you anything other than give you something away for free.
Mm.
Right. So it's kind of like the argument of a free offer versus a paid offer. If I had a $297 paid offer, the people I get are going to be much more serious. Problem is, I'll probably get a lot fewer people.
Right.
Right. So, the fact that if you go to an event like that 90% of the people you talk to are like, no, don't talk to me. I'm not interested. That's just any group of humans.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Even when we took groups of kids out to pass out flyers, if you were in a big crowd, I would always tell them, you don't ask, would you be interested in information about martial arts lessons? Because you're going to get a no. What you do is you just hand them the flyer and they take it. And they say, well, a lot of them throw it away. Yes, but some of them don't, right? So you at least you got, a lot more, passed out than trying to get somebody to make a yes or no decision, right? And so kind of the number one sales technique is, to use Tom Hopkins' language, is don't ask a say no question. Have you ever or are you interested in? That's a say no question. No, not right now. Hey, come spin the wheel, see what prize you win. Oh, okay. Right.
That
That's
probably made a big difference.
yeah. Yeah, that's a different type of it's not a question, it's a statement, right?
It's an assumption of you're just gonna come and do it.
Yeah. Hey, come over here and see what prize you win.
Why are you so happy today?
And then when they come over here and they fill out the form and one thing or another, now I can have an additional conversation.
Cool. Thank you. I mean, the good news from the event is we spoke to a bunch of people and a lot of them had said, I'm not interested right now, but I've seen your ads and I've heard about you, and I've, so that was the cool news to hear that our omnipresence is still very much out there, and so that was really reassuring. But yeah, I like that approach. It'll probably it assumes a sale almost in a way.
What did you do with those guys though?
With those people, well, those are people who I would try and strike up a spin the wheel, let's book an appointment, and more often than not, it ended up converting into an appointment, and if not, we got a lead. So I did 62 leads and I did 41 appointments. So those people I was able to convert to a lead if they were not interested at the time in taking the class or doing the 2-week trial.
Yeah, I think that's more or less the right answer. That's what Master Moody was asking.
Is that what you're going for? Yeah.
Well, I was looking for, at the very least, if you want to give me your contact information, we'll follow up and send you more information about it. My follow-up would be, you're not interested right now. What are you thinking? Well, we need to get school, back in session and everything, and then probably at, middle of September. Oh, okay. Well, no problem. In fact, if you want, we could go ahead and schedule a time for them. But at the very least, I can get you more information, and we can, make a note to follow up then.
Super. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Go ahead.
So, Riley, you were saying, how do you not be more salesy? And this is what I talk to all of my staff about, because this is at any point, right? Over the phone, booth event, in person, whatever, right? If you have an actor and they'll say, what's my motivation, right? Same thing with my staff. Okay, what is our motivation? Our motivation is not, I need to make a sale. I need to make as much money as I can. I got to get you to put down an initial payment. That's not the motivation. The motivation is, this is the best thing your kid could ever do. Cool. I know that this is the best thing you could get. So why am I trying to get your kid in here? Because this is the best thing you guys can do. I know that. All of my staff knows that, right? And when that's the motivation, that comes out more than money. Does that make sense? Right. So, hey, spin the wheel and a prize. Why? Because this is going to be the greatest thing your family can do. I know that this is going to help your kid tremendously, absolutely tremendously. Please come on over. Let's get you signed up. Let's do this. That's the motivation, right? That needs the motivation at all times. Then you don't come off as salesy. You come off as enthusiastic about your program.
That's cool. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. And I might phrase that slightly differently, Jason, is my incentive is to help you find things that are going to enhance your life, right? And if it's not our thing, I still want to be in the mode of, here's some things you might not have thought about that are going to enhance your life, right? And the difference between the way you said it, Jason, is very enthusiastically selling people on your thing versus taking I think about, you go to an MD, I'm not trying to sell you on cardiovascular surgery. I'm trying to get to the root of what your needs are in one thing or another, and then point you in the right direction and solve whatever problems you have. And Riley, I've heard many times, I heard Zig Ziglar, talk about that sales is just the transference of enthusiasm. On the other hand, people are repelled by somebody who talks about something rather than asking them questions, somebody who gives a long explanation, and somebody who feels artificially enthusiastic.
Right.
Right. And I've got to balance those two things. Right. And again, it's where I kind of beat Jason up a little bit of, if I'm in that kind of environment and I don't know who you are, and all of a sudden I'm hyper enthusiastic and I'm talking a mile a minute and I just spit out 4 paragraphs. Well, that comes across as salesy,
Right.
right? But if I'm asking, hey, what type of activities is Billy into? What are some things developmentally this fall that you'd like to focus on? Well, you may not know it, but one of the best things for asthma. We may not know it, but one of the best things for ADD. You may not know it, but one of the things we've had great success with mildly autistic kids is now it gives a chance to create a solution for whatever problem or opportunity they point out, right? This leads me into my next question is on our October event is for you personally, for your school, if there's 1 or 2 things that you could have a breakthrough on that you could really delve deep on, what would it be? Like, let's kind of go through the group. I want to make sure that it's exactly on target for what you need. Stephen, what would you say? If there's one thing that you could get a breakthrough on, what it would be?
One of the things I'm working on right now, so this might be it, is better automation and systemization of follow-up processes through from lead to in the door and actually the lead nurturing all the way till they become students.
Mm-hmm.
I was the statistics, of course, which ties to what the discussion we were just having of how many people actually take action on first contact. It's like 2%, right? And then it gets up and up, and it's usually about 8 contacts to get to 80%. So I'm wanting to improve my lead nurturing and follow-up systems.
Okay. That's right back to the conversations we've been having with some of the guys on Go High Level, and also Jeff's been doing a deep dive on some of that stuff. Stephen, let me give you the lecture I gave to Jeff briefly, though, is what I'm always cautious about when it comes to software, CRM systems, and all that kind of stuff is, which is also happens with people a lot of times with social media, is getting so enamored of that they end up majoring in minors rather than majoring in the major things. One of the problems, even going back to when we were rolling out the franchises, the guys who had any kind of technical background would get so enamored of sitting at their computer all day doing crap that they didn't go talk to the PE teacher and so forth. So, but that's one thing is automating, systematizing, and getting better organized on lead follow-up.
And I think a lot of it isn't even necessarily it might actually still be a program director doing it, but you still need a system of
still a system,
day 1
yeah.
is this, day 2 is that, day 3, right? Like how many and all, some specific things other than just the same stuff all the time. I actually wrote like I'll put on the group what I've written so far as just my first thoughts on it. And then I actually have meetings with people that are working with me on it, but it's good to hear that you guys are working on it too. So,
what type of meetings working on what?
Just people that can help me because, like, for example, one thing that, this isn't the same exact thing, but the speed to lead, like on the ones that are coming from Facebook and web and stuff like that, like I need to get some autoresponders set up so that those do hit. And then we still call personally within the first 3 minutes, right? Like I wrote down here, I put autoresponder, text, and email is immediate. Then personal call and text within the first 1 to 3 minutes, and then ensure that it's in my CRM. Then if no contact yet, call, text, email, and send a video message later the same day. Then follow up every day, 2 to 3 times per day for the first 10 days. And this is where we need to be creative. So we're going to write 10 days of content so that we're not just saying, Come in for your 2-week free trial. Your 2-week orientation, because we did fix that. Come in for your 2-week orientation. Come in for your 2-week orientation. And then I put some questions. What can we automate and what needs to come personally? What mediums should we also be doing retargeting at the same time? When we automate, how can we make it look more personal? After 10 days, follow up how often, because after 10 days, it starts to drop off. And after the first month, just dripping events, I would think. But those were just kind of my first swag at, and then talking to, and so besides Rev, who of course does my website and some things for me, I got a couple other people that help me in that arena that I just mean like that I'll be meeting with on that as well.
Yeah. The okay, so that's one topic. We can certainly do a deep dive on that. Yeah, well, without us getting bogged down in any one topic right now, Scott, what would your I'll just kind of go in order of.
Well, the biggest thank you, Master Oliver. The biggest thing the thing that we are the weakest on is after the basic enrollment, not throwing them over the fence, keeping in contact and warming up, getting that black belt enrollment within the first 2 to 4 months. That's by far, I think, our biggest weakness at this point.
That's
okay.
I second that one as well.
I suck at this. I'm trying to get better, man, but I'm not that good. So,
well, not to make you feel better, Scott, but I got to say it seems to be the single biggest thing that whether it's the Mile High Karate schools, whether they were staff or franchisees, or across the board dealing with with schools, it's somehow the single biggest systems that are the most difficult for people to get into the habit of. And it feels like the most common thing is, oh my goodness, we haven't been doing enough renewals. Let's go through our list and pull people out. And the whole idea of even making a list, I think, is really only appropriate when you're doing a blitz trying to clean things up. Really, it should just be, everybody who's in that basic class, we're going through our curriculum of prepping them, and when they're ripe, we're going to pluck them out. And oftentimes what we do, and this is true of what you were just saying as well, Stephen, on follow-up, sometimes we think in terms of naturally sequential systems when just having it be a part of the overall methodology of what's going in and things rotate through is much more effective. But yeah, and by the way, Scott, if everybody fixed that, they double their gross with no additional lead flow, no additional anything else. In part because their attrition would drop by half, and in part because the average revenue per student would drop way off. And that also ties, I think, to what Master Smith and I have been talking about behind the scenes with Master Moody is, we have a lot of really good martial artists, some of whom are really good teachers. Many of the really good teachers have trouble cloning that in their second and third tier staff. But oftentimes, even the ones who are very knowledgeable martial artists, when you look at their floor and you look at the smoothness of the operation and you look at the consistency of their operation, have tremendous problems. And then if you look at their dropout rate, and most of their dropout rate is the first 6 months, it really, if you could fix that beginner level class and prep, you would solve an awful lot of problems, and then that whole methodology would work its way up the ladder.
Sir, I would like to say that ever since you suggested, we did create the rotating curriculum for the basic, and that has been helping a lot, like just getting in everything as opposed to trying to remember to get each person to everything. But I still feel like Master Sullivan that we need to be better, but that has helped. And then of course the other thing that Master Moody said has also helped. About every basic student needs to be on an appointment all the time. Like, I don't know why I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was said lots of times, but I'm sure.
Yeah, I've said it 382 times. If I said it once, is schedule their third class, schedule their fourth class, have it all in whatever
One.
the app is, schedule
Yeah,
once or
whatever.
whatever the hell, and treat it like a standing appointment, really until they're renewed, right? And Stephen, I don't know why that's a hard concept, but I've got to tell you, I mean, I don't know how many times we've walked through the rotating prep work and so forth, and then people come back to make the list and what you do first, what you do second, what you do third, which is still sequential. I mean, to give credit where it's due, like the only time I ever remember sitting in a seminar and walking through the thing, and it was in Phoenix. I remember it vividly at that horribly crappy hotel we ended up with in Phoenix. But is Jason. I mean, Jason, we came out of Phoenix and he went back in the next 90 days. He had it implemented. It was a work of implementation genius. And again, good work on that, Jason. But like he's the one and only one that I ever remember, actually going back immediately and doing it. But even with our language in the meetings, we come back to make the list. What's step one, step two, step three? When do we talk to them? And that anytime we let ourselves regress to that language, or missing the point that what we want to do is want to have that modular curriculum, and when they're at the very least, we want to do a progress update within the first couple of weeks, and we want to do a progress rate as progress check as they're pre-testing for their first belt, and then that should turn into a full-blown renewal conference with a deadline of when they get their first belt. And hence we get 50 or 70% of the renewals done before that first belt. And every delay on that decreases the effectiveness, the percentages, and the retention. Let me go to William. William, what would be the one thing you could take away from this that would really dramatically impact your business?
Well, I feel like I need an overhaul. Lead to all the way to retention systems and processes. I take lots of notes here and there, but I feel like I have gaps here and there. I want to be able to provide more value in my processes, from white belt all the way to retaining my black belts. So it's really about having systems and processes and really understanding what am I supposed to teach my staff to get them at least close to where I'm at, and I'm still trying to figure things out, right? So I guess really a lot of the details are what I'm needing to really focus on. I understand the overall, that's all great, but getting into the nitty gritty and getting all those little bullet points, like I see some of the notes that Purcell does on his notes. I'm like, I need those bullet points. I need to understand from A to Z what I need to be doing each step of the way, all the way through. That way I can have an overall daily routine like you're talking about, so that I can be saying, okay, program director, main instructor, these are the checklist of all the things that we need to be doing on a daily basis. And I know it's going to be overwhelming in the beginning, but after we get used to it, we'll be like Master Sanborn over with Master Moody. Like she says, at first it seems like a lot, but then after you get in the routine, it's not that bad. So that's where I feel like we need to get to in order to really be able to improve all the way around.
So let me paraphrase it. So a checklist of, this is what we do every day. This is what we do at this time of day. This is what we do at this time of day. This is what we do at this time of day. This is what we do every Tuesday. This is what we do every Saturday. This is what we do every Monday. This is what we do, on the 25th of the month. This is what we do on the 1st of the month. That type of checklist. And most everything we do translates itself into I've got the TV on. They were just flashing on for some reason. Not for a good reason, but the USS Gerald Ford, because I recognized the number we were standing in front of. Yeah, our ramp up of forces in the Middle East as we veer towards World War III. Okay, but but you're sorry for the diversion. But I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday. Hung Kao was with Trump at they did a joint appearance together, and then he was Hung Kao accompanied Trump to the Arlington National Cemetery. I don't know if there's anything else on their agenda, but those were the two things I knew from communicating back and forth with Hung and seeing it on the news. But within that kind of checklist, most of it ends up with it's either a daily routine, a weekly routine, or a monthly routine, right?
Yes.
So once a month we're going to pay the bills. Once a month we're going to verify that all the billing has been processed. Once a month we're going to make sure that all the new agreements have been updated. Once a week we're going to pull the ID cards on Wednesday, call everybody who's missed a class. At the end of the week, we're going to pull everybody and turn them into 1 week, 2 week, 3 week inactive, and so forth. So you're saying have that type of comprehensive checklist.
Absolutely, sir.
Master Moody, haven't we done that 2 or 3 times?
We have.
Yeah.
But I think part of
No, I mean in writing in the archive somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we can find that and post it, but and that might be good to review before the meeting. What I would say for all you guys, it seems like that's a common struggle too. And one of the things that I think, William, you're implying, I believe in there, is I'd like to get the whole picture and implement all of it. And the way to implement those things is, the way I did it was I created the opening and closing checklist, and that was it for a while. And then it was what you do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then, and so if you try to implement all that stuff at once, it's really hard to get in the habit of doing it.
Yes, sir. But I have a lot of the little things. I really need to know, like, what is the outcome? Like, what do I need to get to? And I want to make sure that as I know the full picture, the road, what are the things that I'm missing? Yeah. And I'll start implementing the things that I can, and just I need to know what to work towards so I can have a complete system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, good. Who is next on I don't know, somebody added in, somebody's subtracted, all the boxes moved. Let's see. Riley, let's come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it for me would be about developing staff. I mean, I kind of have some staff that I'd really like to get a little more savvy at the process and a little more knowledgeable, even in terms of, using black belt verbiage on the floor, learning systems. And so a lot of the same stuff that William was saying, I think would be very beneficial for me.
And are you referring to teaching staff, leadership, full-timers?
Yeah, teaching staff and kind of making them more comfortable with, kind of getting a little more hands-on with the students. Because at this point, I inherited some staff and they're kind of not quite at the caliber that I'd like them to be. So just in terms of getting them both more on the floor, teaching minded, but also on the on the business side of things, getting a little more comfortable with that and kind of tying them in to both would be beneficial for me. They're good at what they do as martial artists, and they know how to do that stuff, but it doesn't always equate to being good on the other side of things. So
you bring up a good point behind the scenes is, what we're looking to do is to revamp, especially for, new people, revamp the Facebook group, the website, the onboarding, 8 modules or 12 modules, do this, and then we'll talk about it on the meeting rather than, try to train each of the pieces during the meeting. But the other piece of that, Riley, is, especially as Master Smith and Master Moody to a lesser extent, and me rarely, but as we're out in people's schools, oftentimes the number one fix you could make is to create a more professional environment and create a more on top of it, organized, dynamic and empathetic teaching environment. And we're always in the quandary of how do we teach high-level teaching skills via Zoom versus face-to-face hands-on. And of course, how does it apply to your teaching BJJ versus your teaching Japanese style versus your teaching Krav Maga or whatever it might be. And of course, all the principles are the same. And, we're always kind of hesitant to get into curriculum, but if we don't fix retention, renewal, and long-term student leadership development going from good to excellent, is a tough thing to do. And with staff development, it's clearly the same thing. It really requires getting unified buy-in from everybody, but having clean systems that everybody's required to follow. What I do find in your situation, and Jason has had this growing pain many times, probably a lot of other people have had this growing pain. As you go from small to medium to large to very successful, oftentimes the people who you perceive to be fine at one level aren't willing or able to grow into the next level.
That's
right?
what I'm finding.
Yeah.
That's what I'm finding right now is that, they're excellent martial artists, but in terms of the teaching and the business skill, they're not like you can't be, just because you're a good martial artist doesn't mean you're a great teacher, right?
Well, without us getting bogged down, I'd be interested in having the conversation of what being a good martial artist means.
Sure.
Right. Are we talking about somebody who's athletically accomplished? Or are we talking about somebody who has a tremendous moral and leadership foundation to tie to their athletic accomplishment? Or are we talking about somebody who has athletic accomplishment, a great depth of curriculum knowledge, a good moral and leadership foundation, who's also an empathetic people person who has the communication skills to relay it to other people and the interest and desire to truly develop other people, almost irregardless of their own self-interest.
There's parts of that. There's parts of that, but it's not the whole package.
Right. Oftentimes I find you inherit people who have good athletic skills.
Yes, that's pretty much.
And then they have difficulty seeing the developmental aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes resist the developmental aspect, thinking that it's somehow in conflict with the physical skills rather than a supplement. But you've given me a lot of food for thought. And Riley, just so you know, we're doing a deep dive right now to figure out how to maximally impact that as we go here. Krista, you're next in my boxes here. What would your answer to that question be?
Staff development. I right now I have 2 full-time staff. They're very motivated, but it seems to be that if I'm not actually physically present at the school, then things don't necessarily happen. So there's a lot of micromanaging that I have to do, and the ability for them to be able to see opportunities. And I don't know how to teach that skill, because like if I'm there, I'm like, oh, this, and this is going to happen. But if I'm not there, they just don't necessarily have the skill or the ability to be able to see these sorts of opportunities to happen. And I'm sure it's a systems thing, because systems is my weak area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a help with that, more systems driven, less personality driven sort of model for my business.
Yeah. And again, I'm trying to make sure that October is most productive, but the systems question is, and it's a trite thing as much of Zig Ziglar's stuff was, which was also very powerful. But his old line was, you have to inspect what you expect. That's the way you get respect. And the question would be, on a daily basis, what systems do you have in place to inspect that things are actually happening?
We have of course, we go over the stats every day. At the beginning of the day, we go through them, where we're at. We go through who we have doing an intro, who's going to do what, who's going to teach the class, who's going to do the intro. At the end of the day, we have a recap. We go through it again and what happened today. If there was an enrollment, why they didn't enroll, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that I'm pretty good at doing. At the beginning of the month, we go over goals and we, how many students do we want to enroll? How many leads do we need to get? So, to make sure that we're on track with that. And then going through and seeing where we're at a deficit or a plus on a daily basis, whether that's leads, income, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the biggest system that I probably have with my staff.
Well, and everything you just said implies that you're physically there.
Yes.
And what you said ahead of time is if I'm not there, things don't happen.
That's correct. I mean, they'll do the stats, they'll report to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, in terms of them being able to analyze it without me is at a deficit.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah. Yeah. I probably the most minute level of micromanaging across multiple locations that I tended to focus on was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which is not daily. My friend LaValle, who, for whatever problems he had, he was the most hands-on micromanager in a martial arts school I ever saw. And he had every night a little report that they had to fax over to him before they left for the evening. The Junery Institute, it was you had to call and call in your stats at the end of the evening before you left. But as you go back to, I think it was William, having a checklist and a report where they're held accountable immediately at the end of every day as an accountability makes a big difference, right? So if you had, anytime you're not there, here are the steps that we outlined we were going to have happen on Thursday. Here's a report of what actually happened at the end of the day. All of a sudden they're knowing they're going to have to report to you at the end of the day, right? And I do think there's a big difference between owner operator present and absentee owner operator. And of course, vast majority of Master Moody, Master Smith, and myself were absentee owner operator, right? When you're a present owner operator, and I know for a lot of you it doesn't feel this way, but it's really simple. It's really simple because to the best of my ability to analyze what a football game looks like, there's the coach calling the plays and there's the quarterback telling everybody what the play was called, and then they go do it and then they start over, right? And so when you're present as an owner operator, the ability to do it in every 15-minute huddle and point people the right direction, is very hard for things to fall through the cracks, right?
I totally agree with that, Master Oliver, but at the same time, when I'm not there, then they're not accustomed to the overall daily tasks that need to be done. They rely on me to fill in the blanks, fill in the holes, pick up the pieces, notice that something's wrong or we need to talk to this person, whatever it is. And then when I'm not there, they don't know what the hell to do, or they don't do the things that they're supposed to do. And it really makes me upset. And it's not their fault. It's my fault because I didn't give them the systems and the checklists and the things that they're supposed to do. I let them rely on me being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's right. That's right. And that's where training them deeply in the class plans, the checklist, the expectations. And it's again why a rotating renewal prep curriculum is just like implementing a class plan. Is not a difficult thing to do. Telling people ahead of time, here's 50 people and this person needs this on this day. This person needs this person needs this person needs this. And it's all different is a complication difference of like 50, right? And it makes it much easier to get done. So creating the accountability process and the checklist so that they accomplish what you need done when you're not there. Is that a good summary? Everybody's pictures
Yes,
moved
sir.
again, but now Delfino's next. Delfino, what's your call?
All the topics that have been mentioned are great topics that would definitely help us over here. I've had to take a couple of steps back. My numbers have dropped in the last couple of months, so I'm having to go back and reevaluate everything that we've been implementing. So I've gone back, I've been looking at the videos, looking at my notes, and re-implementing some of the things that I've learned from y'all. One of the major ones, I think Scott brought it up, that would definitely help is keeping in touch with the students once we enroll them. One of our main problems is retention, and I think that would help, along, of course, with the renewals. But everything's great. Any topic that they've mentioned will definitely help us over here.
And when you're talking about new student communications, are you talking about when they're present in class or creating other systems to follow up with them when they're not there?
A system to follow up when they're not here. Because right now we're just enrolling and pushing them over the fence, and then we kind of forget about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what's hurting us.
Okay. So again, it comes back to the 8 appointments and touching base when they come in, and not just throwing them into a group class and hoping for the best.
Right.
Okay. Good. Let's see. Jeff, I don't know if you're present enough to jump in or not. I see on video, but you're running around like a crazy ferret. I used to own ferrets. They were fun animals.
Yes, sir.
Potty
Absolutely.
training.
It would definitely be the following up systems. If I could see an entire picture, and I know we've gone over it before with Master Moody, every 2 weeks until they enroll into Black Belt Club or leadership. But that would definitely be helpful, because I know that we've fallen off as far as that's concerned. We're enrolling them now, and then they're going out the back door. So we need to go ahead and fix that for sure.
So,
and
Master,
definitely staff it up.
Go ahead, William.
Really, what I'm hearing also is not just keeping in touch with them when you throw them over the fence into the basic class, but how do we make sure that we're providing the value that is in our mentors' minds, which is you, Master Smith, Master Moody? Like, how can we make sure that we're providing the proper life skills into the curriculum, that it's not just the physical part, but it's also the mindset part? I know Jason's done a great job with life skills and things like that, but I'll tell you what, Jason Purcell's like, he's a brain. And sometimes I need something, right? That I can kind of start an implementation and eventually get to what Master Purcell's doing, because I know his numbers are fantastic. I want to get there, but I need kind of like a stepping stone or something like that to get there, and being able to make sure.
Let me ask you a question. We could talk about 3 categories of that briefly, but what particular things do you have in place once somebody enrolls as a white belt, where they're viewing this as developmental rather than physical?
I feel like we're not doing that enough. We're not doing the mat chats. I started doing that. I started following a system.
Okay. Well, but as far as let's take 3 categories. Are you doing a developmental lesson in class, every class at the beginning?
No, sir.
Okay. So there's one point in the checklist, and there's a couple of ways to do it. I'd prefer it to be you have a rotating curriculum so you know what it's going to be, right? But that's one thing. Again, I mentioned LaValle, but he would read some stuff, and he would sit down on Sunday and put together a couple of paragraphs, and then he'd have his meeting on Monday, and he'd have them all write it out the board, and every class they'd get up and they'd read what it said, and by Tuesday night they had it memorized more or less. And that was a very rudimentary implementation, but it was one implementation on something like that. The next question is, do you have a reading assignment, a book or something that they're given when they enroll to get them started?
Yes, sir. I have been doing that, but there hasn't been any follow-up on our part as far as reading anything, I guess, during the cycle, or there's really nothing except here's the book, go read it. And even that, for sometimes with my program director, was kind of, I'm like, freaking give them the book, man, and just we'll just go from there. Even though we're not reading and we're not doing some of the things that I saw at Mile High, where they're referring back to the book.
Maybe what book are you giving them when they enroll?
I rotate between What to Say and then the Psychology of Winning. So I'm rotating between those two and basic, but I haven't gone to the next level yet with my leadership. For the rest, I don't know if I do it for Black Belt Club and leadership or what. Do they both get it? Do I need something separate for that middle of the road one versus the leadership program? Like, I guess I have those questions.
Sure. Both and all of the above. But if you wanted a super simple answer to begin with, William, give everybody the Psychology of Winning.
Sir.
And then it has 10 lessons. Walk through every class in week one, and this is rotating, but week one, do the first lesson. I forget what order they are, but it's positive self-esteem, positive self-image, positive self-direction, and so forth. The easiest way to implement would be just give everybody that book, and then every time you get the staff together, the week before, you just drill them on what the chat is about that particular lesson, and you rotate through those lessons. That's the way, I go all the way back to the 80s where I did a bunch of training with SMI and LMI, Leadership Motivation Institute, and Success Motivation Institute in Waco, Texas. And I thought that their approach for us was too complicated. And then I listened to the Psychology of Winning and bought the books and bought the back then audio tapes and VHS tapes. And I ran the staff through the book, the audio tapes, the videotapes, and I ran the students through. In fact, we boiled it down to 9 chapters because I was trying to visualize how to teach positive self-dimension to 7-year-olds, which is basically stop and smell the roses and appreciate life. But all the others are easy to translate. So that's an easy way to implement, and then you can start expanding from there.
Yes, sir.
Right. And then the third piece is, again, Master Smith's favorite topic is, are you giving them the character development worksheets and having them do that, starting with the job list, the self-discipline sheet, and getting movement on that?
Yes, sir. We are doing that, but as time rolls on, for some reason, it just kind of starts dying off as it goes through each level. So basic level is good. That level 1's still pretty good. Then level 2, and it just starts dying off. When you get to black belt, they're like, I almost like it's non-existent for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe I need to be more creative and do something else, but it gets redundant. And I know that's how you build good habits. But I don't know. They get tired of it. Maybe I got to take a look at really implementing a checklist or check marks or something like that.
I would say it differently. I would say all those character development worksheets and so forth are crucial for the first 4 months, important in the first year, and gradually lose their value as they move forward. And all of the other developmental material, depth of reading, expectations, external assignments, community outreach and community service effort, all that stuff starts to become much, much more important. Right?
Yeah.
So what a corollary to that is frequency of reward, right? If I'm a white belt, I want to be layering on stripes and rewards, and every time you come in, you're getting your stuff and you're getting rewarded. And if I'm a brown belt, it's far, 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 far less important, right? goes back to that great book, West Point Way of Leadership, is what if I have to, if I have a 3rd degree black belt and you have to get a new stripe on your belt every time you show up in class, I've done a crappy job developing them to that point, right? Their long-term goals ability, their ability to really self-manage, self-motivate is really gone to hell, right? And so, and again, there's that great book. It's kind of a communist underpinning, but Alfie Kohn, Punished by Rewards, is the thing you want to do is you want to develop self-motivation. You want to wean somebody off of external motivation, right? So there's internal, there's external motivation. There's internal and external rewards and punishment. External rewards and punishment would be, I teach a kid not to do drugs when they're likely to get caught because the punishment is harsh, right? That's a problem. On the flip side, I teach a child not to do cocaine or whatever it might be because they're interested in their own health, their own personal development, their own mental and physical development. And they know that from a physical standpoint and from their effect on people around them, it's going to be a negative impact on them, right? Which do I want? Do I want somebody who behaves properly under fear of being caught, or do I want somebody who behaves properly under proper motivation of why they should do it for the betterment of themselves or their immediate community? Obviously, I want the second.
Yes,
and
sir.
External rewards creates behavior mostly if I do X and reward for me to do X, I do that behavior. Internal motivation creates I do X because I'm just that type of person, right? So the best developmental approach is to wean people off of the overwhelming number of all that stuff. But as a new white belt, we want them to feel immediate gratification, immediate rewards, immediate accomplishment. And we want the parents to see that regardless of methodology, we're coercively or uncoercively getting the child to behave in the way the parent wants to see them behave. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if you look at, our brown belt development process to black belt, there's very little of you're getting, you're not getting a stripe for coming to the black belt prep class, right? You're not getting a pat on the back for having perfect attendance. What you are doing is you're getting cut if you miss your second class, right? So it's a different expectation. And again, like the West Point Way of Leadership story is they're all running out to the field and there's an inspection and the other cadet splashes mud on one people's with the other guy's shoes. And he gets asked why is there mud on your shoes? Appropriate answer is not it's his fault, right? It's yes sir, no sir, no excuses, or I don't understand. So that the only appropriate response then is no excuses, sir. That's an extreme version of internal locus of control, which is ultimately what you want to be teaching your students as they grow. That makes sense, William?
Yes,
Master
sir.
Moody, with your psychologist hat on, would you add to that?
Yeah, if you haven't heard that term, internal locus of control and external locus of control, LOCUS of control, they would be good to look up because this is the difference between people that blame the rest of the world for their problems and people that take responsibility. You can't change the weather by thinking it, but you can be responsible for how you respond to the weather. So it's a much more healthy developmental idea. And so I recommend you guys looking that up. But again, all these things are, some part of its system and some part of its training. I'm glad you guys want to work on these things at the live event because this will be really productive for you.
Yeah. Marty, you're next in my row of boxes.
Yeah. And I would just add to what you've been saying here. There's a quote from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. He says, confront them with annihilation and they will survive. Plunge them into a deadly situation and they will live. When people fall into danger, they are then able to strive for victory. And that's more in line with what we're going to do with our brown belts and black belts. Of course, we're not going to do that with our beginning students, but I really like that quote.
Yeah.
You need to send Master Smith to all the schools and attack staff, and then that's how they'll learn. Yep.
There you go.
Don't give him any ideas.
Okay, well, as far as what I would like to, first of all, I have a broad scope, a broad understanding of what has to be done, but what I'm continuously working on is fine tuning what I already know. So, public speaking, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in community outreach or community marketing that you were talking about here in at 100 students. I don't know. You might want to read this book. It's really good. And public relations or PR work, progress checks to renewals. We're setting up a system where we will have a different progress check every 2 weeks. I don't know if that's going to work or not. We might videotape these and send them out. That's just an idea we're still working on. Cancellations, how to handle, what's the most up-to-date thought process you have on how to handle people that want to cancel, or they say they want to take a break, which is the first step towards quitting. The use of how we will use our books to I have my 2 books here that have come out now. Thank you, Master Moody. So the second book is now, we've got a first copy and then the next copy, but continuing to refine how we can use these in the school to add value to the program, and then to use it just in general marketing, which Master Moody has already gone over that stuff with me, but it's just good to hear it again. And of course, schools, being ready to get more in-depth look at schools, and then getting pictures. This has been a really tricky thing for us to do, is how to take pictures of the children, of the students that enroll and their parents, so that we can start to memorize people's names. I still have a problem with that because, I'm not on the floor. I'm not out teaching students. So I don't remember what they look like. I don't remember what their parents look like, but it's just getting the picture taken and then getting the picture in some format. Are we going to print that? Are we going to put it? How do we hold all that stuff together? So I think we should be expanding this 3-day conference to about 2 weeks.
I do always feel that way, that we could, we could do 2 weeks and still have room to continue.
I agree.
Marty, on the picture thing, I mean, since you mentioned it, it seems like a small point. I don't know how many times people have heard me rail against the fact that Polaroid cameras died. And if you didn't know it, they're back. You can now buy instant cameras. You can also buy, I saw this at the Apple store. You can buy a printer that's about this big, that just Bluetooths to your phone, or however it connects to your phone, probably Bluetooths to your phone. So I can take a picture with the iPhone and it prints it out immediately on the little printer without any complications in between, right? And
got it. Yeah.
It's hard to explain how important a simple system is, right? Back when they killed Polaroids, and yet it was, now digital, and we had the digital camera. The steps were take the picture on the digital camera, hook it up to the computer, try to remember and sort out who was who in the digital photos, print them out individually when the people weren't there in front of us, and try to match it up.
Yeah.
Whole different process than they come in for the first intro. I take a digital picture of the kid with the parents, attach it to their information sheet, and now I have it prior to the second intro, so I remember who it is that's coming in the second time. I attach it to their ID card, so I have the person that's coming in. And so, in my mind, what you want is you want a Polaroid, or you want something where I take your picture and it prints out right there, and now I attach it to everything.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
We're doing that for our black belt visualization sheets also, because a lot of parents, that's why they don't turn it in, is they don't want to take the time to get the picture and all that stuff. So if we can provide that for them with the black belt visualization sheets, they're twice as likely to get those turned in.
without a doubt, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we're even going to the point that a lot of people don't have a printer anymore, because they don't print stuff out. Unlike me, who has 8 of them sitting in my office, and at any one time, one of them might work. Um, but on that, Marty, it's hard to underestimate how useful having a super simple system is, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, all the way back to the first CRM that I developed. I'm sure Master Moody did something like this. We were uploading a digital picture to attach it to their file and one thing or another. But the fact that it was buried in the software meant that it didn't get used much, right? So, you know, my recommendation is, whether it's go to Apple and get the little individual printer, or whether it's, you know, get the current version of whatever they're selling as Polaroid, is take the picture. What we used to do is, at the first intro, we would take 2 pictures, one of them for their information sheet and their ID card, the other one for in the office. And we would immediately write the, you know, the kid's name, the parent's name, all the details on the picture. And then it went on their information sheet, on their ID card. And so every time we pulled up the ID card, stapled on the back was a full-size Polaroid of them. And it was a way to tie it all together. And I've yet to see a digital photography system that works better than that.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would add on to what Jason said about getting people to return stuff. Our systems always, they do it while we're in the school. We never give them anything to go take home unless we're going to back that up with them doing it at the school, because then you guarantee you're getting the item back. So if they're doing the vision board, we give it to them, they do it there, and we give them the way to do it. If they do an application, we give it to them and they give it back to you before the end of class. Those little progress check forms I use, we give it to them, they give it back to them when they get their belt. So everything's done in a way that I don't have to worry about chasing anybody down ever.
That's great.
Chasing people down is brain damaging.
Yeah.
So when you're doing systems and you're trying to get people to comply, it's much easier to have compliance when they're sitting right there.
Well, and that's a good point, because oftentimes the biggest excuse for I haven't done the next step is I'm waiting for them to do X.
Right.
And you know, even if it's some form I want them to fill out, you know, that's why I have 50 clipboards in the school, and I can hand it to the parent on the bench or on the way in and have them fill it out, and now it's done, right? You know, being afraid to take the next step because you're quote unquote waiting for something is a mission of futility. Mark, I see Mark there on camera, and
Hey there.
Jeff.
Yeah, I would say all of the above, of course. You know, I got to do all of that. But probably the single most important thing for me to move the needle is to get the ball rolling on leadership. I mean, I still only have one program, and I've been talking about it with the staff, with the students, and really getting some buy-in and getting some black tops to start appearing in the school and sort of just get the ball rolling. You know, I feel like once I get it started, people will be interested, but really getting it going would be the needle mover for me, I think.
Yeah. You know, and Mark, you remind me that really it's interesting that nobody's mentioned marketing so far. Marty tangentially on a couple issues. I guess I can't say nobody. But Marty, you were mentioning marketing from the standpoint of your book and what community publicity, something else.
Right. Public speaking, community interaction, getting out and meeting business owners and heads of organizations and things like that.
Okay. Okay. But Mark, you said do you have a renewal process at all right now?
No.
No. So if I enroll on the initial program, what happens next?
Well, you're in for a year and then you either drop out somewhere or you just keep going and it rolls and rolls. So,
It just automatically renews and you keep
right.
getting billed at the
That's
same
how it's
level.
been for years. So people are kind of used to it and I'm used to it, but I have to shift it. And I think you had suggested, well, start at the top and start at the bottom and try to get people enrolled and get that going. And again, I'm trying to do that. I've kind of designed a new top. I got to order them, and I put some feelers out. I'm like, hey, who's interested? Maybe that's not forceful enough, but really getting the ball rolling and getting the culture to shift after so many years of like not having that kind of a culture in the school.
Let me give you a quick frame of reference on that. Is when you say people are used to, right? Is what I think we have a tendency to forget is that you're constantly bringing new people in at the front door who have no idea what the school is about, what the systems are, what the history is, any of that stuff, right? Even if they were a family add-on or a referral, they have very little perspective on any of that kind of stuff, right? So it is certainly true that a school that has, a lot of staff who have been there for a long time and a lot of brown and black belts who have presumably been there 3 to 30 years, they all have a way of thinking about the world, right? But the students in the first year and the students that are newly enrolled in the last 90 days have no sense of what's going on, right?
Correct.
So the moving the brown and black belt sometimes feels like the steering the aircraft carrier analogy, but the changing what happens to the next new person who comes in the door is no different than explaining to them what you've been explaining to them the last 2 years, but changing the explanation a little bit. And now all of a sudden there's a different thinking about what goes on. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
if you look at a school, and it's scary and shocking, but the reality is if somebody is losing, pick a number, 7% a month, that means that at least 75% of the school is new within the first year and is still trying to figure out how things work. And 25% of the school has been there for the second year and beyond. And really, at that rate, only maybe 10% of the school has any length of longevity and so forth with really how things go. I mean, even if you think about, you put your kid into an elementary school, they've graduated from kindergarten, you really don't have much of a feel for how that school works and how the hierarchy is and how things are. You start getting to first grade, second grade, you get more of experience. You start getting to third and fourth grade, and you have more of a sense of who the other parents are and who the kids are and who the teachers are and so forth. But we're really in the same developmental cycle, other than instead of being there for 36 hours a week or whatever it is, they're there for 2 hours a week. Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, Stephen.
So first, if I could, I'd just like to add something for Mark. Is Mark, way back when I started with the Grandmasters, the first thing that they had me do is I just put out that there was this exciting new program that I was going to be doing, and I gave everybody an opportunity. I did my first blitz. I gave everybody an opportunity to get in at a grandfather rate. It was only like $100 more than what I was charging then, which of course is less than my basic now, but still was $100 more than I was charging then. And like most of them, did it. Like a lot of them did it. And then like Grandmaster Oliver just explained after that, of course, it was just a new system that we just did. So just getting that first wave with that grandfathered in rate it creates all the social proof. You got everybody running around in the uniforms, and
Right.
it's just a matter of pulling the trigger. And then
Yeah.
Grandmaster Oliver, if I could, I wanted to
Go ahead.
to add one more question or something that maybe we could do at the first was when Riley was talking and so many people talked about staff development and all, it got me thinking, what would really be cool is if we could get like some program directors with program directors role playing intros and enrollments, and some instructors together role playing black belt verbiage and connection with students, and you know, praise, correct, praise, and all that kind of stuff, you know, calling them by name, 3 contact rules and all that stuff. And then like the one I would personally like as an owner that I could do some more work on is also the kind of the budgeting financial management piece. Because I have a bad habit that my gross keeps going up, but I don't feel like I keep creeping up with it, you know. So maybe some like, but that would be of course just for the owner. So you know,
the expenses inflate relative to the amount of money available to
yes, sir.
A common syndrome. And actually, Stephen, what my plan was, not like I didn't have a plan, but I wanted to make sure you know, we've got everybody's perspective solid. My plan was, and frankly, I was surprised when last time we did like, here's what an info call sounds like. Here's what, you know, the prep on the first intro. Here's what an intro class is. Here's what the reschedule. Here's the enrollment conference. You know, here's the first third. Here's the second third. You know, as you remember, you were there with your staff. We went really in deep on Thursday, and you know, my fear was, oh my God, this is way too basic even for, you know, the new people coming in, and even the most advanced people were saying, well, I wish we did more of that. Is that a good recollection? So my intent really was, and of course we have the division of first day, second day, third day, fourth day. The second day is the quick start, and you guys overlaid. My intent really was deep dive into sales methodology and how it applies in our situation on Friday, and then on Thursday the back to basics. You know, a tick on pricing, and then it's the whole enrollment and get them prepped process. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I think we incorporate, you know, some of this stuff incorporates well on Friday as well, but we incorporate what you guys are talking about. You know, the checklist thing, I mean, is really something that everybody needs, at least what the daily, weekly, monthly thing looks like. I hear a continuous conversation among everybody on deep dive on staff development. And Mark, the launch renewal blitz, we can certainly get you all the pieces together for that completely. The first mindset is the next new person coming in the door has no idea how things work. And really the people in the first year really don't have much of a perspective of how things work. So, you know, don't confuse the existing culture of the school with how you develop the next person who comes in the door. And Jeff, you're the last person that's on video that I don't think has jumped in here.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason.
Oh.
Well,
I would love anything that's like role play and actionable, like the checklist type things, but then create the checklist right then and there. I have my computer, I go through it, make sure everything's on it, because that's one of the biggest things. I get home and I've got so much just stuff everywhere from everything that I have a hard time organizing it into an efficient system once I'm back on my own. And so I feel like I don't implement nearly as much as I could if I had a more definitive path when I leave.
Okay. So really nuts and bolts, grassroots. Well, there we go. We got Hung Cao at the Vietnamese restaurant with Trump was on the news as we were talking. So very specific, actionable, role playing, step by step.
Yes. In any category that you want to pick, the more detail we can go like that, I think the better it would help me, because I keep coming back and clearly missing pieces in it. So
that again, Jeff, that's very good feedback, because I have a tendency to think that's too rudimentary and want to move to the higher levels. And of course, I, enjoy looking at the big picture just personally. But then if I retrace what I did with staff development, it was a 13 weeks and, ring, ring. I know you've been here for 5 years, but how you're answering the phone probably sucks. Okay, Jason, last but not least, unless we can get James and Ryan to turn on their camera and jump into the loop.
Sure. So for us, actually, I'm really excited because this is the first time that I'm going to have our staff go, and I'm telling them, okay, the end of the meeting, you guys are going to figure out how to get 100 new students, and I don't want to hear anything about it. I just want you to go do it, right? We're to that point where I trust them enough that they can do that. Of course, I'm going to check in from time to time, but for the most part, I just want them to do it. That summer festival that we got 80 leads from, we also had 3 birthday parties that same day. So we had a huge event going on, and then birthday parties at the school, regular classes at the school, and Marie and I were camping. It was fantastic. So that's what I want is the other thing is the last step that I need for my staff, and then I can start opening up second locations, is the registrations and renewals, actually doing them, right? That's the last thing.
What do you mean by that, the registrations and renewals?
I'm sitting down and actually doing the actual registration with them and getting them signed up on our 1 year 400 initial payment, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Right now I'm doing it because I know I can do it really damn well. And so part of me is afraid to step away because I've got a 93% conversion rate, mm-hmm. and I know my staff is going to be a hell of a lot less. Mm-hmm. But once I get to that point, literally, Marie and I could take off for 2 months and the school run itself. Mm-hmm. Granted, they can also do that marketing piece of getting 100 new students. They do those 2 things. Now I know we can open up another location and I'm okay to be gone. Right. Mm-hmm. So those 2 things. The other thing I was going to mention, and I mentioned this to Master Smith. So our renewal process now is going so freaking well, other than me having to do the actual things. Mm-hmm. Last week, I had 3 families come to us and say, how does my kid get their blue uniform? How much more does it cost? How can we just get them signed up?
Yeah.
Sweet, right? So we've got steps in our regular classes, and then we've got this star system we've got, and then we've got additional things for the parents. I've got 20 different things that we do. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to just present that and show that to people, like 30 minutes, and say, these are all the things you can do, and not say you have to do it like we're doing, but just all the different things you can do step by step, and let people pick out the things that they like. Maybe that would help them. I don't know if that'd be useful, but if you want me to do that, let me know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And bring it all.
Okay, perfect. Yes, sir.
I mean, examples, whether it's flash it on screen or physical, whatever.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Will do.
No, that would be wonderful. Well, good. Well, I think we've actually covered a lot of content while talking about content to cover, but hopefully everybody's going to be there. And I know, some of you booked your room before they knew we were coming even.
What's the name of the hotel again?
Bob, what's the name of the hotel? Comfort Inn or something like that?
Yeah, Comfort Inn, but which one?
Evergreen.
Comfort Inn, Evergreen.
Yeah.
I have it right here. It's Comfort Suites, Golden West, Evergreen Parkway, 29,300 US Highway 40. That's the address. Evergreen, Colorado. The reservation phone number, 303-526-2000. Did you get all that?
Well, there you go. Well done, Marty. Well done.
Thank you.
Do the number again, please.
The phone number?
Yes.
303-526-2000.
Thank you.
Master Oliver?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't have my camera on, but I don't know if there'd be time or if we'd be able to fit it in at the meeting in October, but a little while ago, I'd posted in the group about an employee problem I'm having with the mind to receive a raise and if the juice is worth the squeeze type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that would be, or what would that would be considered into it. I don't think it'd be staff development. Well, it probably would be staff development, but perhaps
it is.
Perhaps how to handle such a situation.
Absolutely.
Is that something we do like on the Sunday event with all the owners?
Yeah. Or I mean, frankly, we can talk about it on Saturday. Jason, in the way that I have a tendency to talk about that is it is more likely to put staff in their place than to aggrandize their expectations, if you know what I mean. I always talk about it in terms of performance and rewarding performance, not in terms of deserving because they're who they are. And typically, Ryan, when you have that kind of problem, I know we talked about it briefly, and I would highly recommend that we make all of that a topic next Tuesday, because everybody here needs a lot of staff development stuff, both how to train at the rubber meets the road, but how to keep them in the right developmental perspective. Those problems tend to happen when people think that they're worthwhile because of their martial arts rank, or they're worthwhile because their time and tenure on the job, rather than thinking in terms of they're worthwhile because how much they beat the bushes, how effectively they develop students, how effectively they create enrollments and so forth, right? And dealing with compensation issues with people who are producers is a very difficult thing, because usually they are undercompensated. Dealing with compensation issues with people who are not producers, but who have time, tenure, and capabilities that aren't directly related to the job, is the thing that it comes back to kind of Riley's conversation earlier, is you've got to slap them into submission, or develop somebody underneath them. And I know that wasn't, you're muted, Ryan, but that wasn't a specific answer to a specific problem, but it is mindset wise. And I mean, Jason, you've dealt with that as you grow. Everybody deals with that as you grow. Is they see the growth of the school and think that even oftentimes as they're contributing less and less and less to it, that their compensation should grow.
I think
if we can go over it Tuesday, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think Ben asked about that Thursday, and we went over that a lot too.
Yeah.
I said, "Where's my money? You're making money. Where's my money?" And you got to build the right culture for that.
Yeah.
The best thing is then when those people say, "Well, I'm going to leave, and it's going to hurt your business so bad," and then they leave, and the school does better ever, right? In the next several months.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's, by the way, what usually happens.
Mm-hmm.
What usually happens. Okay. On that note, Master Smith, if you're really there as you're driving across the vast expanse of Texas, I think people underestimate the vast expanse of Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. But Master Smith, Mr. Dunn, and Master Moody, if I can keep you for half a second. Everybody else, see you tomorrow, or see you Thursday, or whenever next. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.